Hello again, band directors. This is Dwayne Huff with Band Leadership Seminars, Band Leadership Online. And for those of you who don't know me yet, maybe seeing this on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, I'm a 9-time student leader, 6-time drum major, basically a unicorn in the marching band space. I've never been an educator, but I honor you for all that you do. And I'm glad you joined me here today, because today we're going to talk about how to develop leaders to be consistent. And before I jump in there, I just announced my 2-day clinic in place of my 1-day live clinic. If you're interested in checking it out, having me work with you live in your band room and your students, run over to 2dayclinic.com. I put the link around here somewhere. But band directors come to me year after year, successful band directors who have great programs, maybe even competitive, because they're doing well. For all intents and purposes, their programs are running great, but they're frustrated by the lack of consistency and follow through in their student leaders. And what I tell them is a couple of things. There's a great saying, I wish I could take credit for it. It's by John Maxwell, who's one of my leadership mentors. And he says this, he says, leadership doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. And so I tell the band directors, the sooner you get started selecting, training, and developing your student leaders, the quicker it's going to take in the culture and prepare them for when marching band season starts, but also to keep an attitude and a vision and a perspective and a focus on leadership throughout the year. The other thing is this, as simple as this may sound, and you may have heard me say this on some of my other videos, if you want your student leaders to be consistent in the example they set, in the attitude they show up with, in their follow through, in their commitment, you want that consistency, you have to tell them why consistency is so important to you, to the band program, and to their peers. Because many times students at that level don't know what consistency is, let alone why it's important and why they should do it. And I'll share a story with you here in a second about that whole thing. But first and foremost, realize that as you're developing a culture of leaders who are consistent, who show up daily with the right attitude and the example, as I mentioned, that takes time to develop. I was talking to a band director friend of mine who's been in that role for a few years now. And somebody had asked a question in our Band Leadership Inner Circle Facebook group. And they were like, how do I get my students to understand servant leadership, to not be or try to be authoritarians or be dictatorial, but to realize they're there to serve and create this culture of servant leadership. And the band director said, it takes time. You know, leadership doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. But I think whenever you are able to connect the dots for student leaders and show them why consistency is important to you and to the band program, they start to understand and get it. A point of reference, there's a book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, by Robert A. Cialdini, and he did a study in there to show what caused people to comply with requests, demands, suggestions, or directions. And I'll make a long story short, feel free to look it up in that book. He said, when we simply give someone a reason or tell them because and connect the dots for them as to why we're requesting or asking something, in this particular case, why we want them to be consistent, compliance to that request, that demand, that suggestion, or that direction goes up to 90%. So in other words, whenever you show students and tell students why consistency is so important to them, to you, to the band program, to their position as a leader, and you help them to understand that, there's a 90% chance that they will follow suit and be that over time. And you just have to continue to reinforce with them until it takes. Well, Dwayne, I'm a band director. That's frustrating. I don't have time for that. That's overwhelming. What am I to do? Continuously put them in front of or point them in the direction of videos, of books, of examples of consistency and why it's important and how it can serve and help them as leaders. If I can be of service there, let me know. But there's a lot of great resources out there. So I just wanted to make the point today. I took some notes. I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. A story about consistency for me. I first learned or heard about consistency and the importance of being consistent as a leader whenever I was graduated high school, going into my freshman year of college, spent that summer with a drum and bugle corps as the drum major. Now, it was a class A60 corps. It was a small corps, but consistency still mattered. Now, I remember one time we were, I think it was in Pennsylvania, somewhere on tour. And for some reason, my whole bent whenever I was a drum major was about the showmanship. I was a good conductor, had some great mentors who showed me that, and that was why I was hired by the Drum and Bugle Corps to be the drum major. I wasn't a brass player. I was a woodwind. So that tells me right there that they didn't hire me for my brass playing abilities, right? So I was a conductor and I was a showman, and they put me on the podium because I looked good. But one day we were having a rehearsal in Pennsylvania, and I just wasn't getting it done. I was inconsistent in my conducting and my directing of the corps. And I didn't realize this back then, but what happened was that the drum caption head would stop rehearsal in the middle rehearsal and march from the back of, not really march, but run from the back of the field to the front of the field where I was on the podium and say, Dwayne, stop doing that. I'd be like, what are you talking about? He's like, stop doing that. You're changing it up every time. We need you to be consistent. I'm like, whatever. I was a showman. I was inconsistent. I was trying to create, and I was trying to make it look better, because at that point I didn't realize, yeah, as far as a drum major and a conductor, it was somewhat about my abilities, but it was never about me. It was about the corps. And this went on for several times throughout the day. And I don't think I really ever got why he wanted me to be consistent or the impact it was having on the corps, because he never connected the dots for me. So I kind of filed it back, and I think I went on for the rest of the year just doing my own thing. And in hindsight, looking back, I can look back on that corps. They only won one show that year. And I'm not digging on them. They were a bunch of great people. They marched well together. We had a great show. But I often ask myself why it was that they never won more than one show or placed higher. And this is a self-assessment in hindsight. But I think one of the reasons they were ineffective, I believe one of the reasons we left our absolute best show in a parking lot the night before finals was because of my inconsistency. You have to tell your student leaders why consistency is important to them as leaders, to their peers, and to you. And if you'll give them that reason, a big, huge, significant reason or a small reason, evidence suggests that if you do, compliance goes up 90%. By the way, that study also shows that when you make a request, a demand, a suggestion, or give direction, and you don't give a reason, and I know many times, as busy as you are as a band director, you're going, you got many things to do, and you leave out the reason, or you don't get to connect the dots. But just realize that if you're not giving them that reason to understand why consistency is important, they're only going to comply 10% of the time. And that culture of consistency, of dedication, of follow-up and commitment on their part may not take, because again, the point I'll make to that is that leadership doesn't happen in a day. It happens daily. Thank you, Dr. John Maxwell. And so listen, if I can be of help this year, if you'd like to have me in your band room working with you and your students for 2 days for the same price of one, run over to 2-Day Clinic, the number 2, DAYclinic.com. I've got the link somewhere here, and I've got all the details there if you'd be interested in working with me. And if this served you, please like the page so you'll see when I go live. Pass it along to another band director or tag them in the comments so that they can see this if you think it would serve them. And let me know how you go about creating consistency in your program if you have some best practices. Not only would I like to know, but your fellow band directors would like to know. Because if we're going to create that culture and have consistency in leadership that lasts not just during marching band season, but all year long, we've got to show the students why it's important, tell them why it's important, and help them to understand that the impact they have when they show up with a great attitude one day and then a poor attitude the next, or they're not really into it the next, and then they're just all excited the next. That's inconsistent, and people don't know if they can trust them, how to trust them, what to expect from them, and it creates a level of chaos in your leadership team and in your band. So again, just remember, leadership doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily, and you have to tell your students exactly why consistency is important to them, to you, to your band program. And then over time, as you continue to plant those seeds, eventually they pass that culture along, that legacy down as one of the traditions of your band program. And it happens with consistent reminders and effort on your part to really instill that in them. Again, put them in front of resources, videos, books, programs, examples that can serve them. And if I can be of any service to you, especially live this year, run over to todayclinic.com. Check out the details on that. Registration is open for that for a very limited time, and I'd love to serve you and help you. We'll talk soon. Stay tuned. Like the page so you'll see when I go live. And drop any questions that you have about leadership development, selection, or training in the comments. That's where all these videos come from. I get a lot of questions and requests from students and band directors alike, and I'd like to hear from you, and I'd love to serve you. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.